Welcome to the DJ Insider Podcast, sponsored by Amplified Events.
It's the only podcast where we break down insider information from our weddings, experiences, and advice from over 15 years in the wedding industry.
We're your hosts. I'm Mike Kane, owner of Amplified Events.
And I'm Chris Zart, general manager of Amplified Events.
Let's get into it. So welcome back to the podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Jenny, and I'm going to say, I know I'm going to butcher it.
Good
Is
luck.
It Beschinski?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
Good job.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. And for the viewers or listeners, how do we know you? I know you're involved in a couple of things.
Sure.
So I know you originally, let me just start there, from years ago. You were the coordinator, planner, kind of main person at the Allure in LaPorte.
In LaPorte, yep.
And I don't know if you remember, but in 2012, my wife and I, we toured that venue because we were getting married and you were our person.
Gosh.
And we were going to book it. We just couldn't afford it. It was out of our...
Sure.
But we loved everything you did. We loved the budget. You got us really excited about our wedding.
I will never not love that place.
It was such a cool, fun place. And I've worked there many times since then. And we kind of have met through that. But now you're doing your own thing. You're doing She Designs.
Yeah.
And a really cool thing, it's a orchestrated events. And it's a vendor collective.
You don't need me. You're doing a great job explaining because it's kind of confusing.
I'm going to stop there. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you got into it, kind of your process, all that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, and I can tell you the short-term version of how Orchestrated Events was born in the last 3 years, but I've actually been planning weddings since I was 6, and it was a Barbie wedding when I started, so we can go as far back as you want. But, so She Designs is named after my 3 kids, Skylar, Hannah, and Evan, so it's She.
I didn't know that.
And I've been doing weddings since 2003. That's how old I am. I've done about 700, a little over 700 of them now. And She Designs was birthed out of just wanting to go with brides to whatever venue they were in and helping them during the planning process, both leading up to the wedding and then on the day of. I also really wanted to be able to have flexibility with my own calendar, my own family. And so that would allow me to do community events and nonprofit events and not just weddings. So wanted weddings to be my bread and butter because that's what I love. And that's what I've done a ton of, but also wanted to kind of get my feet wet here locally in Porter County as an event designer with non-wedding stuff. And then the world broke in 2020. And the short version of what happened was that about 5 or 6 of us vendors who were planning events from our dining room tables in 2020, all of them go away but like 4. And then you're trying to figure out how to plan those events with your dog and your kids and your husband. And God bless all of those things, but it wasn't working at the dining room table. And so then it was, we joke about, well, then it was Panera was open, and so you could go there and meet a bride and talk about contract and budget and money with masked strangers, and none of that worked either. So we decided we wanted to, again, just a handful of us, let's go ahead and open a brick and mortar, which sounded crazy at the time because the economy was weird and events were weird.
And you can't be face-to-face.
But you don't want to go open a brick and mortar by yourself either. So how about we figure out a way where we can still each own our own company and do our own thing, but share the stuff. Let's share the rent and share the website and share the marketing and hopefully share the brides. And that way it's not so scary if you're doing it with 5 of your best friends in the sandbox, right? So my husband came up with this idea of an orchestra, and my business card actually, the logo of an orchestra breaks down all the different parts of this is where the clarinets sit and this is where the drummers sit.
I didn't ever caught that.
So,
That's literally an orchestra pit.
So She Designs is a clarinet player in the orchestra, right?
Oh my gosh, okay.
But when I'm with this symphony of business owners, we can do something completely different than what She Designs just does as a clarinet player. So that's where the symbolism of let's create an orchestra. So as we add members to the orchestra, they still get to maintain their tax ID number and their logo and their branding and their business entity and all the things. Like, we don't take any of that autonomy away from them. But we invite them to have a seat in the orchestra so that when a bride or any client comes into our space, she might just be coming in to talk to one or two of us, and she might walk away using 9 of us because
Never thought
she
about
didn't
this.
know that we could all do it together. So it started out as a COVID convenience, and now 3.5 years later, there are 25 of us right here in Valpo at Orchestrated events. We're 3 doors down from the new Valpo Journeyman, which is its own blessing, and have kind of this wall of fame in our conference room with everybody's literature and stuff. So when a client comes in, they go, wait, you have a balloon twister and a face painter and an efficient and a drone? And the answer is yes, we have one. So convenient for the customers, convenient for us now that our team members have worked together so many times, and convenient for the goal of wanting to work with Downtown Valpo and some of the nonprofits and stuff, because if we don't have it, we can probably get it.
Yeah.
And that's good for the nonprofits who are working on a budget because they want to earn money for their cause. And, the orchestra can kind of pull together.
I never even caught that. That's the design. That's so cool.
So that's all my husband. He's Mr. Business Coach.
That's really genius.
Came up with that
Very
motif.
clever. I love too the orchestrate. You can orchestrate, the orchestra, but also you're literally coordinating.
Literally,
it's double kind of meaning.
So for me, the funny part when I'm trying to explain the business model, because it is unique, the business model of a vendor collective is not a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
But geographically, we don't see it around here too much, other than once in a while in the arts community.
Sure.
You'll see a gallery, or you see some things up in Southwest Michigan, or some shows in the city or whatever. But around here, the business model is fairly unique, and especially in the hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. The fact that DJs and photographers and florists can come together and create an event is kind of a unique thing. So unintended COVID blessings, it was kind of a happy accident that it worked out the way it did.
Well, I've heard of cooperative working spaces.
Sure.
But this is more than that, because it sounds like it's a showcase. You can I can show you in person what my work looks like. Mm-hmm. DJ could set up their lighting or their gear. Florist could set up flowers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we actually have an on-site florist. Our In Bloom Floral operates out of our space every day. And so when a client comes in and they come in to see her for a floral piece and they find out we also have this and this and this, they'll stick that in their back pocket because their neighbor's daughter's getting married next summer or whatever. So the idea is to help each other's networks, and it absolutely is doing that.
I love that. I'm very much a person who wants to collaborate over compete. And when I saw you're coming out, I was like, that is a very cool thing, what she's doing. And I see your stuff everywhere. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. And I hadn't had the opportunity to work with you and your team until last May, when a photographer friend of ours was getting married.
And that wedding was amazing.
That was so good.
Mm-hmm.
They turned, a lot of people don't go rustic now because it's too hot or whatever, or they don't like it. But you made that such a beautiful spot.
Thank you.
Your team was phenomenal.
Well, and it was such a privilege to do that one because the bride is a high profile vendor friend.
Yes.
And so and I know you feel the same way, to be asked to pull that off for somebody who does that for so many other people was really an honor.
It was really cool. And everything came together. It was a really phenomenal wedding.
It was beautiful.
So
love it. And we are now in our 3rd location. We started in an office building in October of 2020. I hear myself say that, and I'm like, who thought that was a good idea?
4 years now.
Good grief. And in the middle of 2020 was a mess. And we didn't know at the time how long things were going to be a mess.
Everything was in flux.
Of course, it's in hindsight, right? But and then moved just about 6 or 7 months later to a location. It was a cute little cottage here in town, but outgrew it and needed the square footage. So now we're over here in a space that looked warehouse-esque when we moved into it. And the landlord, the deal was he would fix up the outside if we would fix the inside. And so we had a month, and it was a bunch of us chicks. And we are not young. We're 40-year-old women. And we were in yoga pants and paint stained for 30 days around the clock, painting floors and ripping up carpet and painting. Oh, it was such a mess. And now people walk in, they're like, this is so cute. Who did it for you?
Who did it for you?
We did it. So very fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I knew you from the coordinating days, but now it's like really exciting to, from when you're working at a venue when we'd work together, but now you're doing all these other things. And I know that you're also an author. You wrote a book.
That's part of it. Yep. That was something else that happened in 2020.
So tell us a little bit about the book.
Sure.
Tell us kind of the process of it all. Yeah.
So you talked about the Allure in LaPorte. My husband and I actually got married at the Allure as well in 2016 because that building will forever be my baby. I love it. And I started there in 2009. Troy built the building, and it was the most unique place in northern Indiana. Like nobody could do what he does. And we know that now, but we didn't know that then. In 2009, it was
like an old gym or something, right?
It was. It's a 200-year-old building, and it was a gymnasium for the church and the school there locally, and he got it and just transformed it. But it was 4.5 years of his own blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
And those of us who are in the industry know that story now. But again, in 2009, as it was unfolding, like, what is this?
Yeah.
I was already a wedding coordinator, had already done a bunch of stuff with my church and outside of a venue. But when he came and presented me with that opportunity, I fell in love with that building and fell in love with him and the concept he was trying to come up with, especially in LaPorte. There certainly wasn't anything like that in LaPorte County. So jumped at the chance to go there. And so this book now, I mean, that was in 2009 and we're in 2024 and I started so 21 years worth of stories, anecdotes. It's weddings and things, tales from a Midwest wedding planner. So stories from all of the venues that I've been in and all of the brides that I've had. And I picked a couple and wrote about them. What I do for brides now, this was actually kind of birthed out of the book, was that what a couple gets from me is I take notes during the planning of their wedding and during their wedding day. And then within 30 days of their wedding, I actually give them a custom written wedding story. And it's just 3 or 4 little typed up pages. But I try to make it pretty. It's a hard copy and I mail it to them because it's a compilation of my behind the scenes stuff that sometimes a bride doesn't even know happened. And so it's funny and it's heartwarming. And, this sister cried when she was telling me a story in the hallway, or this best man's pants fell off in the bathroom before he walked down the aisle and you didn't know that, like, whatever. A compilation of those kinds of stories that I put into a handwritten document as a thank you note from me to the couple for trusting me with those memories. And then it's a fun souvenir that they can pull out on anniversaries and read over, whatever. So the book is a compilation of those kinds of stories that now I give them to my brides as a gift after the wedding's over. So it's just fun.
I didn't know you did that.
Cute
That is such
tidbit.
a cool thing. They'll have that forever now,
Well, and that's kind of it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that now that I'm in the habit, like during the toasts, I'm sitting there taking notes. Like that was a good little tidbit I can throw in the story, or Daddy tells me a story behind the scenes that is an honor for me to hear. Like it's a big deal when Dad pulls me aside and says, whatever. Yeah. So those kinds of moments that I can then capture for the couple that they might not have otherwise, in addition to photos and video and all the other things. It's a unique little souvenir that they can have for their day. So the book is lots of those kinds of things then that everybody can read.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's just fun.
So cool. That's unique. And I love that it's a nice kind of value thing that you give to the couple, the memories, the stories. Like, here's some fun things I learned while working with you.
Sure.
And memories that you'll have now as part of that whole process.
Well, and we know from being vendors that there are always behind the scenes little tidbits while bride is with family getting hair and makeup done and we're unloading and trying to get the ballroom done and there's stuff going on in the kitchen and stuff going on outside in the garden and all of these little things. It's nice to have some of those things captured in a unique way then that the bride can have with her. So
yeah. Oh, it's so cool. And it just adds that extra little piece that is just, this was your wedding. You can remember this day.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun for me.
You've been doing this, you said 2003.
2003.
That is so cool. What do you love about it? What are your favorite parts?
Gosh. I love now that I bring experience to the role. And that's funny because at the shop, we talk all the time. It's a lot of 40 and 50-year-old women. We talk about how we're the old ones in the industry. But it's very true that it's not that I bring old age to the industry. It's that I bring experience. Yeah. There's not a whole lot I haven't seen
wisdom, yes.
in the events industry. And so the good thing about that is that the bride can trust me when I say, I've got you. Whatever happens that day, I want you to be in the bridal suite getting hair and makeup done and not worrying about we got the forks wrong or whatever. Yeah. And I don't want mom to have to be the wedding coordinator. And I don't want Aunt Sally, even though she wants to help, she probably hasn't done it 700 times. And so if a fire comes up that has to be put out, you want to make sure that you've got somebody who has seen all the fires and knows how to put them out. And so I'm really, really confident now in my ability to offer that to a bride and to her family so that they don't have to do it on the day of. Having said that, the experiences that allow me to confidently say a sentence like that means there's been some good stuff and there's been some bad stuff and there's been some funny stuff. There were 2 weddings in particular that were really painful. Out of all of them that I've done, there were 2 where the client was really, really, really unhappy. And I'm transparent about that because even though in hindsight I don't know what I would have done any differently, I also know that it is my job to do my best and that it is my job to communicate clearly from beginning to end. And then at the end of the day, how that is received is not in my control.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to control the things that I can't and to put my head on the pillow and relinquish the things that I can't. The things I can control and the things I can't control. And when I was in my 20s and doing this, I didn't know how to discern between what those were. Yeah. And now I absolutely do. So experience.
Yeah. It's such an ongoing process. And I'm the same way where I've been such a people pleaser most of my life. And doing weddings has really taught me there's just things that you don't have enough control over, even if you wish you could. And you really have to know that those limits in yourself and to communicate those to your client. And here's what I do, and here's what I don't do.
Yeah.
You know, if you want this kind of thing, that's just not me. That to me is the best place possible to be as a vendor, because then you're not setting yourself up or the client up for some sort of disappointment.
Right. Unmet expectations,
yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
And because of the way I'm wired, I am a list maker and I am an organizer and an administrator. And so because I've been doing this so long, I have my systems and my checklists, and I always make vendor phone calls. Those of you who've worked with me know that you're going to get a phone call from me the week before the wedding, and that it's going to be a 10-minute conversation to talk about timeline stuff. And it's really important to me to talk to photographers about lighting. If you're a natural light photographer, I need to know that so that I'm giving you time in the timeline to capture what you need to capture in the right lighting. If you're a DJ who wants a 3-hour dance floor, I want to make sure that I'm creating time in the timeline and that I know what you're emceeing and what you're not. Because guess what? There's been plenty of times when Jenny gets the microphone and says the prayer because the DJ's never prayed before and the bride's pastor left already.
Oh, no.
These are the kinds of things that you figure out on vendor phone calls ahead of time and then make time in the timeline. I try to work with back of the house to make sure that food's hot and I have an idea of how long it's going to take to serve it and are the salads preset or not. The bride doesn't know what she doesn't know. She doesn't know to ask those questions.
Yeah. She's never done it. She never got married before.
And so, and there's also a big difference between venues who have a banquet manager or coordinator or whatever on site and the ones who don't. I work in both of them.
Yeah.
The ones who don't have somebody, that means that I'm probably back of the house and front of the house trying to keep the plate spinning. If the venue does have somebody, then I'm very sensitive to make sure that that banquet manager is my first vendor phone call, so that I'm setting the expectation for I am not going to step on anybody's toes. You obviously know what you're doing as far as protecting your building. What I would love to see is for you to be able to focus on food, beverage, staff, and I will absolutely take care of bride and her mom and the 4-year-old flower girl that threw up, whatever. And so those partnerships then are established ahead of time because you said it. You said it's communication. Like if I can set those expectations and set that communication forth in vendor phone calls 10 days before the wedding, then I can type up a timeline, email it out to everybody, and then the unexpected things on wedding day, which certainly there are those, they're manageable because at least we took care of all of the other logistic stuff and the vendor phone calls.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my type A checklist combined with I'm a people person. I love people. I love to talk. And so I can use those skills on the day of when the spontaneous things are popping up because the type A stuff is already on the clipboard, So it's a good combination.
It helps manage all the craziness, the chaos of it all,
Try to.
It makes it more manageable, and that there's just always something that's going to happen. But the idea is the show must go on. We have to cover, and ideally the bride never knows.
That's the idea.
They get to enjoy the day, celebrate, as do the guests and the family members.
So we had a bride, speaking of stories, we had a bride last year who used several of us from the collective, and for whatever reason, she was short a bouquet. The bride didn't know it. I caught it, finagled the day and the timeline with some other things. Fortunately, there were 2 other factors that delayed the ceremony for just 10 or 15 minutes, and I was able to use those to whip up a bouquet with the help of some vendors who were there with me. And we had 15 minutes for somebody to drop some stuff. And so by the time it was time to walk down the aisle, that was when I distributed the bouquets, and there were enough of them, and the bride never knew. That's the point. I don't want her stressing out over, wait, did I order those wrong 6 weeks ago?
Doesn't matter.
She never even knew.
Yeah.
So when you have professionals who've done this a bunch, and they don't freak out on the spot because they've done this a bunch.
They just go into
That's
work
what
mode.
you're paying for.
Yes. That's why you pay somebody.
That's why you pay
a
somebody.
professional. Yes, when you do it yourself, if you haven't done it before, you're gonna forget. You're gonna miss things.
Or panic or run to the bride and expect her to fix it. There was no way 15 minutes before walking down the aisle, I was going to tell this poor girl, you're short a wedding bouquet. Nope.
Yeah.
We just fixed it.
Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is the bride's on the phone calling florists that day. It's just that's not the way you.
Nope.
We've had florists on the pot. That's not how you do.
No. And so to your point, not that we're keeping secrets from the bride.
No.
But it's her job to prepare to become somebody's wife in that moment. That is what she should be focusing on, not is the cake melting or is the music loud enough or what, that's what we're for.
Yeah, it's not the same thing, but I look at it similar to the book The Giver, where there's a person responsible for keeping the memories of the town, and so the town can exist. Of course, I don't mean the dark dystopian side of that.
Yeah.
I don't mean the dark, that does get a lot darker, but it's the kind of thing you're keeping the town memories. It's you absorbing I used to be a social worker. Social workers do that. You absorb a lot of that so that the person can keep moving forward. And then you're a more objective person to know how to best handle that and to go into action when you need to.
That's so funny. So my degree is in psychology. And so people laugh all the time and go, psychology in your wedding coordinator, you use your degree? And then vendors are like, oh, no, she uses it all the time.
All the time.
So you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of weddings is navigating the dynamic of relationships.
It
and
absolutely
there's so much, because there's so many people, there's so many politics at a wedding. And so when people are planning their wedding, I always try to tell them, be prepared for a lot of opinions that you weren't expecting from people you didn't expect them from.
and big personalities.
Yes.
There are certain even categories of vendors that I love, and sometimes there are big personalities. And so part of what I try to bring to the day is very much a culture of we've all been hired to give this day to this couple. And so let's work together as a team to that end. That's it's not for this vendor to be better than that vendor or whatever. It's for all 6 or 7 of us who are here for the next 12 hours to make sure that the couple gets what they're paying for.
We win when everything goes well and goes smoothly and the bride's happy. We all win when that happens.
And fix the little things that come up as a team together, whatever. And so I think that's what has helped me become true friends with so many of the vendors that I've worked with over the years. And hopefully when they know I'm coordinating a wedding and I'm making the vendor phone call, that's a good thing. And like I said, even the banquet managers and the venues that have coordinators, we did the Bridal Expo a couple weeks ago, and I was walking around going to the venue booths and hugging the coordinators because I've built relationships with them, and it's absolutely one out of respect. And I don't want to walk in and take over your venue, but we're sharing this bride, and we're going to do that well. And yeah,
you're kindred spirits,
Yeah, it's a privilege.
You're fighting together for the same team. Yeah,
very much. Yeah,
that's the best way of looking at it.
Good.
Any crazy wild stories from weddings that you without mentioning names,
Weddings sometimes involve alcohol. And alcohol makes people do very funny things, as it should. A wedding is a great opportunity for a couple to get a babysitter so that they can dress up and go out and have dinner and drinks and dancing when they wouldn't be able to otherwise. Whatever. There's lots of reasons for guests to celebrate at a wedding, and so they should. Many of the stories that I've seen that kind of make you go, involve alcohol in excess. There was one where a female guest was at the venue and she was caught in a part of the building almost becoming intimate with a male guest, and the security guard stopped that before it got any further and asked them to return to the party and the dance floor, and they did. Later on that night, the security guard saw the same female guest out on the sidewalk fighting with her boyfriend, who was not the guy that she was with earlier in the evening.
Oh, my goodness. That is wild.
So that was one. And that just sticks out to me because at the end of the night, the security guard's like, the girl that was in the...
Do you remember from earlier?
Yep. And then we had a story where it was a best man. And again, justifiably excited, celebrating, having fun. Began to strip off his clothing as the night proceeded. And by the end of and he was a big boy, and by the end of the night, he was not only dancing on the top of the table without a shirt on, but he took the tablecloth and wrapped it around himself, and that became the shirt. So things like that then make it to the wedding story, and the bride's like, yep, that's about right. So not anything that's ever been, super tragic or anything like that, but usually just shenanigans that involve the fact that people were eating and drinking and making merry.
That's one of my pet peeves at weddings that guests do, besides, of course, all the DJ stuff, but just when people don't have decorum of shirts off, just hands off. Just
hands off.
Just you're at a wedding. Mm-hmm. You're at a wedding. This is
well, and it doesn't matter where they are. There are very upper echelon, high end venues where those shenanigans happen, and then tented events at a park
backyard,
and they don't happen. So there's no predicting. There is no rhyme or reason. There's no demographic that says, "Yep, they're going to be the."
I've had them where
it can happen anywhere.
They threw the groom in the pond. That's a little different. Everybody's wet. But still, it's just
shenanigans.
You're at a wedding. Yeah, just people act like rules of decency no longer apply. It's Mardi Gras. I'm gonna go wild.
Well, and there's expensive clothing involved, and so. Okay, so that spurred another story. Telling stories. There was a very cute story involving a groomsman whose tux literally did fall apart right before it was time to walk down the aisle. And it was a summer wedding. It was outside, and the poor tuxes, they're so hot anyway. Outdoor ceremony in July, So I have always carried an emergency bag with me, and has a bunch of stuff in it just in case, we got to fix something or whatever. And so the groomsman comes up to me and he's like, Jenny, you've got that Mary Poppins bag where all the stuff comes out of it. What do you have for broken pants and suspenders or whatever? Again, not telling the bride. This is 20 minutes before we're walking down the aisle. And we fixed it with binder clips. This groomsman's pants got him down the aisle with binder clips from my Mary Poppins bag and floral wire and the clips to the suspenders had broken, and so his pants were literally falling down, and he was holding them up. So wired him together and then buttoned his coat so that he could walk down the aisle, and then told her later, but the ceremony is when the pictures need to be pretty and we need to get down the aisle and not have the pants fall off. Like if they fall off later during dancing, then we're going to deal with it. But ceremony, we're still trying to have everybody in their fancy pants and be nicely photographed, right?
I love that. MacGyver, you just did
For
that.
real, binder clips out of that. So that was the first time that I'd ever had anybody call my emergency kit my Mary Poppins bag, and we still call it that now.
That's
It's
great.
like, where's Jenny's Mary Poppins bag?
Oh, I love that.
It just kind of was coined on that day by a groomsman.
You never
Michigan
know.
City.
I have a couple e-bags as well. I've just, I never need this cable or this little thing, but then I use it. I'm just when I'm about to remove it, then I'll use it that
Well,
way.
yours is the scary techie stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff terrifies
little
me.
tools and those just crazy little things that you never thought. There's always something. I keep extra tools in my car, all weird stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. My so a lot of times weddings are on Saturdays, and the following Sunday morning, one of our favorite activities in church when I'm looking for a pen or my reading glasses or whatever is, here's a pair of needle nose pliers in my purse, and here's 6 different colored and different size paper clips, and there's a bread tie wrapped around floral wire, and Eric just sits there and is like, it's what is in Jenny's purse after this weekend's weddings. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What about really sweet, really memorable stuff that kind of touched your heart? Memories from
Oh gosh. I love crying grooms. Natalie, who's still at the Allure, she and I did hundreds of weddings together. And she is not a crier, but we loved crying grooms. And we would have stretches where we'd get a bunch in a row, and it'd be like, we have all the crying grooms. And then you'd go through a dry spell and be like, we haven't had one in a while. And even last summer, I was at an outdoor farm venue, and groom walked down the aisle first and was seating the moms. And he hadn't even seen the bride yet. And the song that was being played made him cry while he was walking his mom down the aisle. And he turns around and he's walking back up the aisle. And we're like, we haven't even started. He's crying already. And it was so cute. He's like, this song.
Oh.
It's like, he's my favorite groom of the year right now. Those are always really sweet moments. Grooms and their moms. I have a picture on one of my social medias of a wedding that we did at a park here in town this last year. And the groom was dancing with his grandma who was in a wheelchair. And so he was spinning the wheelchair and high-fiving grandma, and her face, she was in heaven. Like, her baby grandboy had just gotten married, and he made sure that he saved a dance for her. Like, ugly crying at the vendor table watching this groom dance with grandma in a wheelchair. So, of course, I love, like, how do you ever stop loving stuff like that? I'll never stop loving it.
Yeah. For brides who recently got engaged or getting married, planning their wedding, you have advice for them about hiring a coordinator, what to avoid, what to look for, that kind of thing?
Definitely hire one, because I promise there's going to be stuff that comes up. And that doesn't even just mean hire me. It means hire somebody to help you.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff during the day that your grandma and your aunt and your mom are not going to be able to anticipate, and they're not going to be able to do it well. And that's not fair to them. Having said that, if you've made the decision to shop, I'll say this for any of your vendors. I'm not even just going to say it for my category, but in general, to the best of your ability, don't shop on price, shop on personality. And I think that is especially true because you've got a lot of vendors working behind the scenes on your behalf that day. And some of them are what we call drop and go vendors. And that just means that you're not really hanging out with them personally. Like, they're providing you with a product, but they might not be with you all day at your wedding day.
Do you need to vibe with the person setting up your drapes?
Sure, and make sure
Yeah.
that what their service and their product is pretty. Maybe personality isn't as big of a factor with those vendors, and that's
That makes
okay.
sense.
The vendors that you're hanging out with for the day, the ones who are in charge of your dance floor, the ones who are taking pictures of you in the bridal suite while you're putting your gown on, your coordinators, the ones that you are getting to know, make sure you vibe with their personality. And I think that what couples do, weddings are friggin' expensive. None of us are saying that that's not true, because it's true.
Yeah.
But as much as possible, don't cut corners financially on a vendor that you vibe well with if you can figure out how to make the pricing work. Because at the end of the day, you're so thankful for the vendors who were with you that vibed with you and gave you your day.
Yeah.
I can say that after doing as many as I've done, because there have been a lot of brides who decided they didn't need a coordinator, or they decided to take the coordinator that came with their photographer and video package, or the coordinator who comes with the DJ because they've started including coordinators in their package. And a lot of times brides will come back to me having regretted that decision. Because it was a budget coordinator or because it was part of a bundle and the coordinator actually worked for the DJ company, not for the bride, or the coordinator was a photography assistant who all of a sudden decided to start being a coordinator. And everybody has to start somewhere. And I love entrepreneurship and I will help business owners get started all the live long day. But if we're being honest and transparent about giving a bride her best day, if what they're hiring their vendors for is always based on budget, they might end up shortchanging themselves when, if possible, they can instead shift the focus to, I want a vendor team who gets me and who's going to walk me through my day and give me what I need them to give me on my day so I can just be the bride and not be the wedding planner. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Trying to say that in a nice way without bad-mouthing, certain levels of vendors or whatever, but a lot of times couples regret hiring vendors that didn't match their personality better.
Yes, yeah. We deal with, DJs are egotistical. It's just, you have to kind of almost.
Mike said that, Jenny did not.
You almost have to have a big ego to be like, I can throw a great party for these people. And I know what a great party, you almost have to have that. But I think with that, you also have to have humility and you have to listen to your couple. Doing this long enough, I've learned through trial and error, mostly error,
of course,
what works, what doesn't work, and the best way to communicate that to the couple and to be honest about that. And rather than to just take over, there's times when you need to step up and when you know the best thing and behind the scenes to work that out and make that happen. But there's times when you need to shut up and listen and play the song that the couples want. Don't just do your set list because you like to mix that music. Don't play that song because you like that song. Play that song because this is really going to get the crowd going. This is really going to get people up, and this is going to make, ideally, a great memory for the couple. That's got to be your goal. That the couple is building, You're helping the couple have an amazing time, an amazing memory, and their guests have an amazing time.
Well, and so much of that from a sales standpoint is knowing your audience. That's always marketing. Is that if your marketing strategy is this and it doesn't match the audience who's listening to your marketing strategy, then you're gonna get that wrong.
That's right.
And so I have become, again, with experience, I've become very confident in sitting down with a couple. And if I feel like we're not going to be a good fit, I'm honest with them about that. Like, I might not be what you're looking for, and here's why. Because I want that day to be about them and not about me. Of course I want them to hire me. I love to do weddings. But if I'm not going to be able to service them in a way that they're looking for, we had a situation, and it was just a faith-based decision that I made. The type of day that they were looking for was not a day that I was going to feel comfortable providing them with. And so I gave them a bunch of vendors who were absolutely able to give them their day because that's what a bride deserves. I stepped back from that situation and said, you know what? I can't coordinate this one, but I absolutely have somebody who can. Yeah. And they were able to give her dream day. That's what that's about. It's not about me and my ego making the money that day or whatever. It's being able to tell the bride up front and being transparent and owning my own whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't know this about me, but I probably would not be a good fit for you on your day. And I want you to have the best fit for your day. Yeah. So I'm going to give you this list of people who are going to be awesome at it. And she thanked me for my transparency and she hired them and had an amazing wedding. That's how that should go.
That's exactly how that should go. Because you get one shot at it. It's such a big day.
And she deserves to have her day. And I'm not asking her to fit her vision to me.
Yeah.
That's not fair to her.
Yeah. If you're trying to fit it, it's not. It's going to go badly.
Yeah.
It's better off for everybody to as soon as you see that, oh, this is actually a better fit for you.
Well, and if you're a young DJ and you're just still kind of cutting your teeth, you might not be able to know that in advance.
And chasing the money,
And there's a confidence, like you might not feel good telling a bride that you're not a good fit for her. And by the time you've done it a few hundred times, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that sentence now.
And there's also, when you've become more established, you realize, where there's going to be someone else who's a better fit. We don't have to close every customer. We don't have to sell everybody. And we really try to have a conversation, and it's how can our services, here's what we do, and then is this going to be a good fit for you? And how can we help you purchase from us? If that's a good fit. If not, we'd here's some other people who we think do great work. Yes.
There's a really good entrepreneur here in town who started out as a DJ and now does a million things, and he uses the word alignment a lot, and I love it. And it's like, if we're all in alignment, that this is going to go really smoothly. If we're all in alignment 85% of the time, and the 15% of the time that we're not, we can still play nice in the sandbox, it's still going to go smoothly. But if we can only be in alignment 20% of the time, and the rest of the time the egos are going to get in the way, then maybe it's better that we recommend this vendor team instead.
Yeah.
And recognizing that early in the process, instead of trying to manufacture something that is not in alignment or that feels fake, or because the client will pick up on that, and it's not fair to the client.
Yeah.
So it becomes a business decision, and experience and working with a vendor team, you'll be able to discern that earlier in the process, which is better for everybody.
Yeah. The clients don't always know there's politics between vendors.
Sure.
They don't always know that either.
Which is ridiculous, but
there are though.
There are. It's funny because as the conductor of the orchestra,
yes,
I very much strive to create a culture at our brick and mortar from day to day, create a culture of abundance. I believe in abundance mentality, and there's more than enough to go around. There's enough weddings, and there's enough brides, and there's enough concerts, and there's enough balloon twisting, and there's enough. And so I am absolutely comfortable and confident working with other coordinators, and I'll give them business advice. They can come have a cup of coffee with me.
I love talking shop.
I know,
it's my
right? And I
favorite
see,
thing.
I was looking at your stuff with Arrested Sounds.
Joe.
And I was like,
He's one of my best friends
that they do that.
Yeah, we get coffee or beers regularly.
That is what I'm saying.
Just talk about shop.
So I've had a couple other coordinators in our collective, because there's only 52 Saturdays. I can't make another Saturday in October. I wish I could, because holy Moses, the Saturdays in October go really fast.
They do.
So you need to make sure that you've got other coordinators or other DJs, whatever, in your back pocket, because when you're booked, you want to still make sure that the bride has options of good vendors. So absolutely love working with other coordinators. I have heard that there are a couple of coordinators who don't like me. And one of them I've actually never worked with, so that's funny. I'm like, we've never met. And so the example that I try to set with my younger members and my younger entrepreneurs, helping them navigate, how do you handle situations like that? And it becomes creating a culture of confidence that I can only control what I can control. Yeah. And I can't control you, but I can control my reaction to you. And I am always going to operate out of abundance. And I hope that you are blessed and prosperous and have an amazing year. And that means that I'm not going to get every single wedding, because I want you to have some of them too. Yeah. But I don't feel threatened or scared or sad if you get it and I don't, because that's not how that works. Yeah. We just don't operate that way. And it comes back to old age and experience. But man, you learn that after you've done this for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and especially because we've all been in those situations where, I need some help. Oh, I need some advice. Oh, I need to find someone who does bagpipes. There's so many.
Who's a source for whatever?
Who do you go to when you need help? And, have you burned all those bridges? Have you upset everybody? Have you, have you always, that kind of thing. If I need equipment, if I need a DJ, I can call people.
Somebody to cover, somebody to borrow something.
If I need advice, I need ideas, that we're all in this.
Very much. And I do feel like Northwest Indiana is really blessed with a strong entrepreneur community for being a, podunk little Norman Rockwell, Northwest Indiana. I'll meet with vendors in the city. I don't work in Chicago. I don't. And a lot of my vendor friends do, and they're great at it. And they'll say to me, "You've been doing this forever. Why don't you work for a corporation in the city?" And I'm like, "Because I'd be in a cubicle in a big building, and I'd be a little fish in a big pond, and I'd have to figure out their excise and their county tax and their only this union can unload the van in this alley." Like,
Yeah.
and so it sounds arrogant, but I'd rather be a big fish in a little pond in my little Northwest Indiana sandbox full of friends where I've done this forever, because we help each other.
Yeah.
And we know each other. And what that translates to is not just fun playing with my friends, although that's certainly part of it.
Yes.
But it's that I can confidently provide the event that my client is paying for. I don't have that confidence in Chicago. And so more power to the vendors who are confident providing that experience. I'm just not one of them. And so I love Northwest Indiana vendors. And I love the venues who are gracious enough to welcome me as a coordinator into their space. I love it when florists that don't work in my collective are still recommending me for photo shoots, or, like there's a camaraderie that comes with doing this for a long time in the same region and establishing rapport and relationship with the other vendors. Yeah. I mean, it's different when you're friends,
It really is.
And it's in a good way.
I'm that same way. We really don't market to Chicago. We work there, but I'm not really trying to.
Yeah.
Because I want to be connected to the work I do. I want to be connected to the couples I serve. I don't want to be, working out of some venue in Rockwell or whatever, Illinois, 2 hours, this is where I live. This is where my home is, where my kids are growing up,
So much.
And I want to be connected to people from this area and be connected to that work and to my staff who live here too.
Live and work and play and worship and all the things here in your backyard.
Yeah, I want to build a community, and I don't, I'm not. If you want to chase money, you can do a multinational office in every little city.
Anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's all about the money, you can do that. But then I think the quality goes down. I really do.
I do too. And my husband, God bless him, he's a business coach, entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah. So we talk about this stuff all the time. We have really boring conversations at our house about businesses in Northwest Indiana. And we got to go to the State of the City address yesterday and the new mayor here in Valpo and talking about the city council. And because we're invested in community, we knew half the people there and the room was packed.
It's so fun. All my friends are here. Yeah.
Like this is where our kids go to school, and this is where Evan plays Pop Warner, and this is where we go to church, and this is where we do all the things. And so of course these are the nonprofits I want to support, and I'm going to give them a discount. And these are the causes that we do feel invested in because they're right here. And so I don't begrudge anybody doing business in a different zip code. That's fine. But I love being able to focus here on the work that we do.
Same.
For sure.
Speaking of those other vendors.
Yeah.
Any advice? And I would even say DJs. If you're working with a coordinator, put me on the spotlight. Advice you would give, I assume as a coordinator, you see, and a planner, you see, the good, the bad, the ugly of vendor relationships, and especially for young DJs or people starting out, things to avoid, things to do.
So I've had an experience where the caterer is coming up to me during dinner going, "Why is the DJ in the kitchen telling my staff when to bring the salad out? Aren't you the coordinator?" And I tell that story for two reasons. Number one, I completely understand that 92% of the weddings that DJ has done that year hasn't had a coordinator. And because he's the MC and he's got the microphone, he's trying to keep the timeline moving. I get it that is a logistical part of his job if there's not a coordinator. If there is a coordinator, I strongly ask for the respect to recognize the fact that I would be really bad at being the DJ tonight, so let me be the coordinator and you be the DJ, because that's what the bride has hired us to do. And if that's a hard habit to break, then let's just have that conversation. I don't want to step on your toes, but I am going to ask that you return the favor and not step on mine, so that the caterer isn't coming to me going, "Can you tell the DJ to stay out of my kitchen?" Because that happens. Yeah. And then when I'm the one going to the DJ going, "Buddy, I know you're not used to having somebody like me, and I'm sorry if I'm coming across as bossy, but she's hired me to be bossy, and the caterer doesn't want you in the kitchen." So then there's friction between me and the DJ because he's used to being able to tell the caterer when the salad's coming out. So my advice, and there's two pieces, my advice to vendors is be respectful of each other's roles, because we've all been hired by this client to provide a task on the list of tasks. My advice to brides is that if you have a vendor who is bad-mouthing other vendors or who advises you not to hire that because if you get me, you don't need that, I would say maybe shy away from that vendor. Because what you don't need on the day of your wedding is to be hanging out with your girls and getting your pictures taken and stuff, and your vendors are fighting over here in the corner over whose job is it then to talk about the salad. If a bride can know that, and those conversations need to be discreet and professional and stuff in the hiring process in the beginning. But if there's a piece of advice that I can give a bride who's newly engaged and she's researching all these vendors, not only do you want to hire vendors who complement your personality, but if you can, try to do some research and see if you're hiring a vendor team that they complement each other. Because if they don't, you might have some problems behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that happens, and it's sad.
Yeah. I always say, like, I can only talk about what we do in our business.
Right.
And I've worked with this DJ, and they do a great job. I went to a wedding with them,
Sure.
They're phenomenal, that
and
kind of
there's
thing.
so many good ones.
Yeah.
So try to take the time to do your homework to find the good. And there's so many factors. Yeah, you got to check date availability. And, of course, you've got to check pricing, and you've got to see what's included in the price. And but if a DJ tells you you don't have to hire a coordinator if you hire him, and then the coordinator loses the contract because the bride hired that DJ, that's probably going to be a DJ that coordinators say, yeah, I don't want to work with him.
Yeah.
And that's just yucky it's yucky for the bride. It's yucky for everybody. And I'm really blessed to say that does not happen around here very often. It doesn't. But if a bride asks, I will never, ever, ever volunteer any of that information unless a bride says, I'm considering this company, and this company. Do you have any honest feedback for me?
Yes, that's a different question.
Then I owe it to her to answer that question honestly and professionally and kindly and discreetly, of course. But I owe it to her as my client to answer that question honestly, and so I will.
Yeah, that's a totally different scenario when they're asking for candid feedback about your experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with this? And it's not, I don't mean to DJ bash,
Sure.
but
No.
It can be a photographer, it can be anybody. And again, photographers tell me all the time when there's not a coordinator, the photographer becomes a coordinator. And that sucks.
Yeah.
But it's because the photographer knows what the lighting is and they know what time it is and they want to get sunset photos. And so they know what time dinner is going to be served to mom and dad at table 4. And the photographer does know all those things.
Yeah.
They usually don't want to be the coordinator, though. And so they're really happy when a coordinator is on board and then they can be the photographer. That's what you want.
Yeah. We get that scenario sometimes with venues, believe it or not, where the venue's like, you don't really need a DJ. We've installed a sound system. You can plug in a mic. We have a microphone for ceremony. You don't need to pay for that. Or like you can plug in your phone to do, have...
So who's introducing and who's emceeing and who's doing the anniversary dance?
And at ceremony, when that microphone's not loud enough, or if it's too loud, who is going to be...
There is techie stuff
Who
involved.
is going to be adjusting those levels? And if you have a videographer and they're recording, where are they plugging into? How are they going to record that? There's so many things that I'm just like, okay. Now, I do understand. There are venues, geographically they're located in an area where they get noise complaints or they have they have to keep it to a certain level. And DJs, we've dug our own grave with this because we're too loud. Or
it's echoey and it's all hard surfaces because industrial chic is popular right now, and so it's all brick and wood and glass.
The whole thing is a tuning fork.
Horrible.
And so we have situations where we've got a decimeter and you got to stay below this, or you have to use our house speakers. Mm-hmm. I understand that kind of thing. And generally I try to avoid, that's not our client, but, and I explained that, we can control our system. We don't know how to control their system. So I can't promise it's going to sound good.
Right. Quality.
That's it.
It's always a quality
If I use their system, I'm happy to do that if that's the rule of performing there, if you want me to perform, but I can't guarantee it's going to sound good.
Of course.
So they know that going in, and that's what it is. So
it's transparency and it's honest communication and discretion as far as, how much to talk about and how much not to in those beginning meetings. And
people can't hear the speeches. If they can't feel the music, it's what it is.
You've done what you can do for sure. Yeah.
So wild. All the things that you don't even think about.
Uh-huh.
Do you have an ideal client? I've been getting into this interesting lately with branding. That like the better you brand, the better you're going to attract someone that's going to be your perfect person to work with.
I love a client who is a perfect combination of knowing what they want in their event and at the same time being able to trust the professionals that they've hired to execute that vision and then just be able to enjoy the event.
Yes.
The word ideal is key there because none of us are ideal humans in any way.
That's right.
It's all
in the
a
best
process.
Circumstances. Yeah.
But if I have a client who's trying to raise money for a cause and they've got a date and a color palette and a theme that they're trying to decorate for, and they want me to come along and create a decor scheme and a floral scheme and a color palette and then some fun entertainment stuff to go with it, and then be there on site to make sure that the timeline and the room diagram and everything gets done. If they can provide me with the conceptual and then back off and trust me with the production, that's the ideal client. Because they've provided me with the picture in their head that I can't see. So please show me some Pinterest boards and, give me your color palette. Let me know what kind of flowers you like. Let me know your personality. And then on the night of the event, please check in with me and let's have open communication and dialogue and whatever. But also go enjoy the event and let me do it for you because that's what you've hired me for. And so don't micromanage me on the spot because that's what we're here for, is for you to wear your fancy dress and go enjoy the dance floor and have a cocktail and hobnob with the clientele. And and let me do the event for you.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And it's a balancing act for sure.
Absolutely. On the DJ side of things, we get that creative control with the music and the setup, how we lay out our setup. But most of it is the music. And I always tell clients, tell me what you love. Tell me what you want to avoid. And then I'll let me creatively fill that in. Don't give me the exact order of the songs to play. I can do that, but then that's really taking out a major key of what I'm doing, of knowing when to play the song and how long to play the song for. Yeah, to me, that's really what I've narrowed in on the type of DJ I am, and the way I train my DJs is we want to play the song they didn't know they wanted to hear. We want to keep that floor going. And to do that, we need the creative control to be able to play. Okay, we know you love this, and we know to avoid this, and we want to get to here, the end of the night. And I ideally want to build that energy and adjust as the energy. But our whole thing is we're creating that atmosphere that is conducive to partying.
It's almost choreography. Like you're directing the production. Yeah. And people who have worked behind the scenes and done this long enough understand that role. An event where they love Motown and they love kind of even a 60s, 50s kind of sock hoppy feel, like that has a completely different vibe than a late 90s, early 2000s hip hop vibe is totally different than Willie Nelson kind of acoustic country vibe. Those are different parties.
They're very different.
And maybe you can play all of those songs at different times of the night, but you know that these people are going to go home by 9:00, and that's when you switch to the 2010 hip hop.
Yes.
And having an experienced person in charge of the playlist and the dance floor who knows how to read the crowd and read the timeline and read the time of night and make those adjustments.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not such a cut and dry thing. People think, oh, you're the DJ, you played the music. How hard could it be? And I was like, well, yeah, you could do your own playlist, but I could tell you right away why the people aren't dancing.
Empty dance floor.
Because of my experience, I know. It's way too bright in here. The layout feels like you're being watched when you're dancing. And, it's way too early to be playing that song. Those kind of things.
Or too many slow songs, or we haven't dimmed the lights yet, and or get a few more drinks in them and they're loosened up, or the kids were here for dinner, but the babysitter's going to come pick them up, and then mom and dad are going to feel more comfortable. There's so many factors that come into guest experience.
That's it. And if you do it long enough, you really understand the psychology of that. And hopefully you find couples find you that want that experience, that align with that.
Take it from the social worker and the psychologist.
That's the ideal, client. Yeah. So I'm trying to more and more tell my story, and hopefully clients listen to that and like, oh yeah, that sounds like.
That's amazing.
That sounds like what I want. And that makes my job so much easier.
Because then you're not guessing. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're guessing.
That's it.
I'm not a mind reader.
Corporate
I didn't know
parties-
you wanted this.
Corporate parties are like that because you have so many.
Different.
Everyone who works at this company has different taste.
For sure.
And you get all types, you know. We just did one at Blue Chip on Saturday, and it was like we played some ABBA, and we played, you know, some hardcore rap, and we played some really sleepy country, and you know, we were all over the place.
Of course.
And we just kept adjusting based on who was dancing. We did some sock hop, you know, swing stuff, and it was crazy. But I think everybody had a fun time, and ultimately, the owner of the company, the CEO of the company, and the HR person who hired us were like, "Thank you, like you guys did great."
Good.
And so that to
That's
me
what
was
you
like,
want.
okay, yes, okay.
Of course.
The employees were happy. But more on that, rather than the ideal, you know, client or customer, what are the best weddings you've ever done?
Oh gosh.
What are the themes that you saw, the elements that those weddings had?
I'm an extrovert, so I love the big ones. They're uber stressful, but
More people?
yeah, did a Nigerian wedding. A lot of times the ones with a cultural flair end up having a big head count. And those are fun for me. This particular one, I was the only coordinator, and it was going to be about a 16 or 17-hour day, and I knew that going into it. And we had an amazing week leading up to it with the bride and with her family, and they had traveled internationally. Like, there were airplanes coming in from everywhere, and we knew this going into it. And I remember waking up that morning and being like, here we go. Like, we knew. And at 8:30 a.m., that bride walked in, and she had coffee in one hand and her gown in the other. And as soon as she saw me, she got tears in her eyes, and she gave me a big hug. And she goes, "Jenny, I'm just so happy." And I went, "Oh, baby girl, you can have whatever you want today." Like, when they're that excited at the beginning of their day, and no matter how long of a day it's going to be, it's a privilege to be the first face they see at the beginning of it and be like, "You're doing this day with me." I will do that all day long because she was so excited and so thankful. And I mean, that whole day was ridiculously beautiful. She was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. There was clothing and food and meat pies from some grandma that came from somewhere. And I didn't even know what the country was. Like, those are the fun ones because they're not the ones that we do all the time. And they're not even the ones that we get to see on Pinterest that often, like cool legacy, ancestry, family, cultural elements that it was like, well, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. There was one little mini ceremony that I got to witness one time. Again, it's just such a privilege. Like, I was invited into that moment where it was a bride and her future mother-in-law in the bridal suite right before ceremony. Seems like all the good moments happen right before ceremony. I was going up to tell them, 6-minute countdown, whatever. And the groom's mom was physically putting the veil on the bride. And it was a staged moment with the bridesmaids and the photographer, like planned in advance, physically transferring the mantle and the nurturing and the future caregiving from old mom to new wife. And the verbiage that the mom had planned ahead of time, like, "I am entrusting my boy to you, and I am welcoming you into that role. And I'm recognizing that my role's not going away today, but that from this moment on, it is changing, and how grateful I am." And I mean, we're standing in the stairway going, "Oh my goodness, that's beautiful." Those moments that you don't get to see unless you do stuff like this for a living. And it's the big moments in a person's life. And when it's all over with, and I go home at midnight and I'm like, I saw that today, and I saw that today, and sometimes, yeah, it's drunken women out on the sidewalk fighting with their boyfriends. Those we laugh about and write about. And then the other ones is mom stepping back and new young wives stepping up in a moment like that, and that you get to witness it when otherwise you wouldn't. Yeah. I will never stop loving that. I'll never stop loving that.
That is so cool.
It's amazing.
I call it awe-inspiring. You're just in part of
Absolutely.
this. You're part of this awesome moment that you're just kind of witnessing, and you're just wrapped up in, and just it makes you stop and think. And I'm in the right place. This is so cool. It's very humbling and exciting.
All of that.
And that happens.
It happens often.
Yeah, on a semi-regular basis. If you do this and you let it change you, you notice those things. It really does. It's
well, and as a DJ, you witness daddy-daughter dances, and he's crying while he's holding her.
Or first looks I'm playing music for.
Absolutely. Like there are pivotal, monumental moments that we get to witness that are part. I thank brides all the time in my thank you notes and stuff. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your memory making. And that's not just rhetoric. That is sincere. You could hire anybody to be part of these moments with you, and I'm the one you picked. I don't ever stop being humbled by that.
Yeah. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah, I love it.
A very special thing. And
I love it.
To me, the best weddings have that kind of, we're all in, we're excited, we're happy, we're going to enjoy it no matter what happens.
Very much.
And we're going to make the best of it no matter what. And I love when family or friends or when couples kind of have this attitude of like, we've done this, we're doing this with care and consideration because it's important. And it creates really cool moments for everybody, but for vendors. But that energy is so infectious, and that the rest of the day, everybody's in love and celebrating, and it's really cool. Well, thank you so much. This has been phenomenal having you on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for story swapping with me. So much fun.
If people listening are interested in working with you or being a part of the vendor collective, what's the best way to reach out and get in touch?
So the website is orchestratedevent.com, no S at the end. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Our shop is right here in Valpo, down the street from the new Journeyman. I'm super easy to find online and socials and stuff. We're there during the week. We have weekly business hours at the brick and mortar. It's called Orchestrated
Can they
Events.
kind of walk in?
Yeah, they can absolutely. On-site florist, cute little conference room. We've always got the coffee on. We've got wedding mags there. If you want to actually have a sit-down consultation, we do recommend that those be done by appointment, just because if you walk in and want to sit down for a half hour, but somebody's already in the conference room with a different couple that just walked in, then there's nowhere else to stick you. So actual consultations, get a hold of us online or shoot us an email or a text, whatever. Website's easiest way to find us, and we can schedule something. But if you just want to walk in and say hi, or if you're a vendor and you want to walk in and introduce yourself, come in, have a cup of coffee with me, see the flower shop, whatever. We've got a couple of designers that actually build custom designs in our back warehouse. And so there's a Barbie box back there, and there's power tools, and there's couches, and we have storage units off site with more couches, and there's always construction of things going on. Sorry, Cheryl, that I'm telling people that, but she's the builder of all the things, and she's amazing. So it's fun.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great. Please come back and see us again.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, super
this has
fun.
been the DJ Insider Podcast. I'm Mike, and this is Jenny with Orchestrated Events, and she designs, and we will see you at your wedding.
Yep, absolutely.